Welcome to the Prosperity Gap, where we discuss the financial gap that exists between where we are and where we should be. It's time to bridge that gap.
Hey, Prosperity Nation. Welcome back to the Prosperity Gap. My name's Dave Hall. I'm your host. Many of you realize that I have not been around for the last few weeks. You've been able to enjoy CR Talene filling in for me. I appreciate the opportunity to have him do that. I've been traveling, and now on the island of Puerto Rico, we are absolutely completely quarantined. So I cannot get out of my house, excluding to go to the grocery store. You'll notice we don't have our nice, beautiful studio behind us today. That's because I cannot get into the office. Now, hopefully, for those of you that are listening, you're not quite going through as much disruption in your life, but unfortunately, it is a new time. It's a new struggle for us. And the topics that we talk about on here become even that more relevant. Well, if you have not yet had a chance to subscribe to our show, please make sure that you do so. We'd like to make sure you're getting these topics, meeting our guests, bringing that information into your lives on a weekly basis so that you can continue to bridge your financial gap. Today's show is being brought to you by eTrends Tax and Accounting. You may have heard that the date to pay your taxes has now been extended 90 days till July 15th. That doesn't give you 90 days to file, unfortunately. You'll still have to file an extension if you're waiting to pay, but you do have 90 extra days. So if you've not yet filed that return, please go to etrendsgroup.com. That's etrendsgroup.com, and allow them to help you get everything organized and get your taxes filed timely. Very excited for today's show. Today I've got with me Gabe Bult. He is a financial guru, a YouTuber, blogger. Gabe, I'm not sure all the cool things I can use to explain to you, but Gabe, welcome to our show.
Yeah, Dave, thanks for having me.
Gabe, we've been very excited about this show. I talk about it all the time, how excited I get to meet new guests, but you're doing many things in your life that others aren't. I mean, you've made some commitments at a very early stage in your life to help prepare yourself for the future you have ahead of us. So maybe you can talk a little bit about how you got started on your own financial journey.
Yeah, so let's see. I think like a lot of people, most people that I talk to, it started with Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Somebody recommended that to me. So when I was 18, I didn't want to go to college because I'm not a very studious person. So I was actually like just Googling like, top paying jobs that don't require a college degree, came up with real estate agent. I'm like, I could probably do that. So I got into that, and then I kind of I kind of wanted to get a multifamily property because that was kind of something that I had read in Rich Dad, Poor Dad. So I was on that path, and somebody told me that that's actually called house hacking. So I started, getting into all that, learned about bigger pockets, and kind of went down that rabbit hole a little bit. And then when I was 22, I got my first house hack, and that's really just, changed my life from there on out, just because of, just really frugal living, the spending less, and trying to focus on earning more, and then investing in real estate has really been the thing that's, changed my life.
What's your background? What did you come from originally from your parents' side? Were they financially sound individuals? Is this something that you've come up with yourself?
Well, my parents are kind of very entrepreneurial on both sides. But like in 2008, my dad was actually a real estate agent, and he went down to like zero income. And then he had to get out of that because he had to like survive. So we weren't poor, but there was a certain times where we were very, I started working at 11 for like our family business, and it was commercial office cleaning. So nothing like glamorous, just very basic thing. And I've been doing that until I just quit my job actually a couple of weeks ago. And now I'm just focused on this stuff now. So yeah.
Very interesting. The real estate world is definitely an up and down world. I look back at my own career, and back in 1997, I thought of giving up my CPA license and actually going into commercial real estate. Now, obviously, if I'd done that, there had been times I made way more than I did as an accountant, but there are obviously these dips where you make nothing. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges that people are even facing now in the environment we have now. All of a sudden, we've had a pretty steady income stream for a number of years now, and immediately that's getting cut off, and we've got to be prepared and ready for when those times happen.
Yeah, especially when it's your only source of income. Like he wasn't thinking about investing or anything at that point. And that's why I'm kind of full-time real estate agent right now. I don't really know. I'm doing a lot of different things. But I'm also trying to make sure that I'm doing a lot of different things so that if this completely dries up, I don't need that paycheck. It's simply going towards, savings or whatever, and I can live off the other things. So trying to diversify yourself a lot is something that I think is really important, so that when economic crashes do happen, it doesn't impact you as much.
It's very interesting. You talk about Robert Kiyosaki and his Rich Dad Poor Dad book. This morning, I was actually watching a video that he had done on January 31st. It was probably recorded a few weeks before that, so we would have actually been mid-January. And he actually was predicting that we were going to have this collapse. Now, he could have never guessed that it was going to be done through a virus. Had no idea that that's what was going to cause it, but he was talking about the global collapse and things that we need to do to prepare ourselves. And very interesting to see individuals that have spent their lives in this space, how insightful they can be as things start to change and they start seeing signs in the world that can bring economic downfall and economic problems for us.
Wow, that's crazy. Yeah, there's been a couple people like kind of, predicting that it can't continue to go where it's at. I don't think anybody saw this coming, but it's very interesting times, definitely.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about your house hacking and what your first investment was, how you originally started, and what you did there.
Sure. So my first one was a triplex. So we got a decent deal on it. I had been looking for quite a few months. I ended up taking like a full-time job working for my dad so that I could have a steady paycheck and be able to approve for a loan because I didn't have credit because I wasn't using credit cards or whatever. So it took me like a year to build all that up. And then, I got a triplex. We got a good deal on it. And I lived in one unit. I renovated the unit that I was in. And then the other 2 units covered all my mortgage, taxes, and insurance. So I was essentially, living for free there.
And how was the experience of actually living on property? I've been a landlord multiple times. I've never actually done it where I'm the tenant as well as the landlord living together. Mm-hmm. Did you find that works okay? Maybe better even so you can talk to the tenant, see what's going on?
I mean, for me, I don't really care all that much. I think when you're a younger person, you don't have a family. I did get married while I was there. But for the most part, like it was something that we would have been living in anyways. And my tenants were pretty decent, except for one of them, which was we had to like kind of like evict type deal because he was not paying and threatening us and all that type of stuff. But even with that, it wasn't like a huge deal. So for me, if somebody told me, I had to live at a property for a year and a half, and I'll get $1,000 income for the rest of my life, it's totally worth that trade-off. Like the benefits totally outweigh, like not living in the best place.
Talk a little bit about the rehab. Is something that you've done before? What was that experience like as you're trying to rehab this property?
Like I had painted like once or twice before rehabbing, and so we mostly like a lot of it was painting, but the kitchen and the bathroom we completely gutted both of those, replaced the ceiling and all the stuff. And that was definitely a big learning experience. I did hire some family members who did some construction so that I could learn from them. But a lot of it we just tried to do ourselves, and it did take quite a while living in construction zone for quite a while and all that. But it was definitely like you don't need a ton of experience. I don't think like a lot of people are like, oh, I don't know, like how to do any of this stuff. I'm like, I have no idea what I'm doing either. You just like watch a YouTube video. How do you put in a sink? Now you know how to put in a sink for the rest of your life. And a lot of it's actually pretty basic stuff once you take it down. Like even I learned how to tile there. I learned how to like do some basic plumbing and all that type of stuff. And I had no idea what I was doing. So I wouldn't let that deter anybody.
Yeah, it's very interesting how things have changed. I look back on my life. Back in the 90s, I bought a 15-unit complex. It was a apartment complex. Unfortunately, I've talked about it on my show some, that it was too small to really hire a manager, but it's too big to manage yourself. So 15 units was not really the right number, but we were having to do subflooring. We were having to replace all the kitchens, all the bathrooms. We were doing all the painting. We were doing all the exterior, replacing fencing. And I'll tell you, we didn't have YouTube like we do now. And it was quite an experience for me because I just could not afford to hire contractors. So luckily my partner knew some about construction. And so he'd come and try to show me kind of how to do it. And then I'd go and do a unit and he'd go and do his unit. And hopefully by the time mine got done, it looked good enough for people to move into, which generally it did. But it was definitely a process. But I agree with you. The reality of it, we have so much education. Most of it you can't screw up that bad. I mean, you've got to be careful if you're doing tile. You've got to make sure you're getting your lines correct, that you're being patient, which is one of the key things that you've got to do anytime you're doing a project. Just make sure you're having patience to do it right. But if you do that, it's going to be a great opportunity to save substantial amounts of money.
Yeah, absolutely. And even like tiling for me, I find it really fun now because just once you get that first level done, just make sure everything is like once you get that first level, it's not that hard. You just you put the next one on, and a lot of things are very common sense. But we did a much smaller project than it sounds like you did, and I haven't even renovated the other units yet. But now at my second house hack that we're in now, we're doing a much bigger one. We're renovating a 4-bedroom unit, so that's learning a bunch of new things there, and it's definitely a lot bigger of a project.
But a lot of fun, and what a great opportunity to be able to learn those skills that you can use anytime in the future. I know for myself, it's not something I do all the time, but there are times that I'll get back in and we'll tile. We had a business that we had tile the floor again on a couple of years ago. And my wife's really good at getting the layout right. I'm really good at cutting and making sure that everything's available for her to make sure it's laid out the way it needs to be. And she just loves that. Same with painting. I'll roll all day and love painting. But when it comes down to detail, that's her job. She realizes that she's much better and much more patient than I am, but it can work out very, very well for everybody.
So it's definitely, I don't know. I think it's a blast.
I do too. It's just great. Yeah, it's just great to get out of what we normally do. We're all good at various things. Yep. We get out of what we normally do and learn some new skills. And if it doesn't turn out exactly the way you want it, you learn from that and go forward. And we've had some of those. I mean, I've built patios, I've built planter boxes, I've done a lot of things. The planter boxes were my biggest nightmare. I was trying to do some concrete stuff and didn't get the footings the way they should have done. And they turned out to be a nightmare. But over time, I've still saved myself thousands and thousands of dollars by being willing to do some of this myself. And it's given our family an opportunity to work together and work towards something, which has given us more pride in our home and the places we're living. So Gabe, I know you originally bought this triplex. Have you bought other properties since that time?
Yeah, so we just closed about a month ago on my second triplex. So we used an FHA on the first one, 3.5% down. And then this one, we were able to use a 5% down loan. So this one's a 2 4-bedrooms and a 2-bedroom, and we're living in one of the 4s and renovating the other 4, and the other 2 was already rented. So that's where we're at right now.
And the new place paying your mortgage as well? I mean, is it able to cash flow on the 2?
Yeah, it will. Once we finish renovating this one, we're trying to decide if we're going to Airbnb out each individual room on the 4-bedroom. So if we do that, we should be able to cash flow about $1,000 a month while living in the property and it covering all my mortgage, taxes, and insurance. That's part of why I left my job, is because once we're able to do this could almost make up the difference, and it should cover most of our living expenses.
Gabe, let's talk a little bit about Airbnb versus traditional rent. Obviously, you're contemplating, maybe you've been doing some Airbnb up to this point. What's your thoughts on the difference? What should people look out for if they're going to go Airbnb?
Well, I've been Airbnb-ing my other one that we used to live in for the past month here. And the downside of that would be that with the economy, everything that's going on right now, I've had to lower the prices quite a bit in order to keep it full. But I have so far kept it full every night. It's just been a lot cheaper. And then there is the cleaning, and all that type of stuff. But with doing it by the room like this, we could rent out this 4-bedroom unit for about $1,500 a month. But if we rent out each individual room, it should be in between $3,000 and $4,000 a month for that. So it's almost double, or it is double the amount of rent. So if you're willing to put in that time to manage it, you definitely do have to, there is some time involved. But if you're willing to look at that as kind of like a part-time job, it can make things possible that are totally impossible otherwise. And it can make deals if you're willing to do that. You can make a deal out of something that's not when there's not a lot of options out there.
And I'd almost guess that you're probably getting less damage on somebody that's coming in on a daily, nightly basis. I mean, because you have immediate recourse. You have the ability to go back if something happens, versus a tenant. They can destroy the whole place in a couple of years of living there. And then all of a sudden they say, we're leaving. You go in there and you're like, holy crap, what happened here during the last 2 years?
Yeah. So I have had one person who kind of came in and trashed it, but it wasn't any actual damage. It was just they stole some stuff and moved some stuff around and whatever. But the other people, sometimes a couple of people don't even show up and you still get paid, or they'll show up and you can hardly tell that they were there. The bed sheets will be messed up and you're like, well, this was 5 minutes. That's totally worth it, So it kind of depends. And if you're willing to, if you have a little bit of a nicer place, if you have the cheapest thing in the market, you might get some interesting people. But if you have something that's a nice place, people will treat it nice, and it stays looking brand new the entire time.
So Gabe, how did you get your credit score up? I know you mentioned that in the beginning. That was one of the challenges that you had, that you didn't have the right credit to be able to buy these properties. What have you been able to do to get it up now to where you can do this?
Well, it wasn't really down. I just had never had a credit card before because I was, 18 or whatever. And my parents had credit card issues. So they said never get a credit card. And, I just got like one of the secured ones. And then from there, I was able to get, like the Southwest cards and the Chase cards. And I started doing all this like credit card hacking pretty much. But just very responsible using it. It's always on auto pay. So it's always, paid off every month. I didn't really have a deficit that I was coming out of. It was just, beginning to do stuff. So when I got my first property, I only had one credit card at the time. So they had to use my gym membership and a few other things as lines of credit because I didn't actually have that much credit. And then from there, once I had the mortgage, that really boosted my credit up and I was able to get more cards from there.
Yeah, it's interesting. It does not take that much to actually build your credit. And unfortunately, most of
Yep.
it's done through a credit card. If you can get one or two credit cards, use them responsibly, you can build that credit up fairly quickly to be able to get the loans that you need to be able to buy real estate and other things.
Mm-hmm.
So you do a bunch of other hacking in life. You're very frugal in the way that you live. Talk a little bit about how that experience has been. Now you're married and trying to live a frugal life and look for the future.
I don't think it's been that difficult. We're both kind of, on the same page when you have an overarching goal in mind of like, well, if we live this way for the next few years, we can have the freedom to travel a lot with our, with our kids when we have kids or whatever, and the freedom to not have to work. If something happens, we have that security. So kind of looking at things that way. And then also at the opportunity cost of if you're spending this money, then you're not going to be able to invest this money. If you can invest it, you're buying freedom and that type of stuff. So we've done, car hacking getting older cars. I don't know if it's car hacking necessarily, but getting older cars, never any new cars. You don't have the payments and any of that, and do credit card hacking and trying to make sure that, planning out our food, just trying to optimize everything we can. If I don't really care about it, then why would I spend, more money than I need to on it?
And I know one of the things that you talk about all the time is the importance of getting these big items. And I think that's one of the cool things that you teach is it's 33 to 40% that people are going to spend on their home. You've got 17, 18% people are spending on transportation. If you look at these items just in and of themselves, over half your income may be going towards two things that if you can cut those out of your life, it allows you to do a lot of other things that you may not otherwise be able to do.
Absolutely. And that's why I'm so big on house hacking. I feel like I almost talk about it every week on my videos, but if you just save up, let's say for me, it was under $15,000 all into the first property. And I saved that inside of a year on what I would have been spending in rent. And now I have like an automatic, 30-40% savings rate just built in from that one. So if you can take care of that one, that house hack, get that first thing, that's going to give you like a 30% cushion for the rest of your life. And then, focus on the big things, and the little things, try not to stress about them too much, but I still am kind of overly frugal on a lot of stuff and have problems spending money. But it's something that I need to work on a little bit.
So where's your wife with that? Is she as frugal, or which one of you is the most frugal of the two?
She's doesn't really care as much about the whole finances side. I kind of cover most of that, and she's probably not as frugal as me, but she definitely understands, why we're doing this and why we're making these choices. And it's definitely worth it when, she doesn't want to have to stay at her job forever, and didn't want me to have to stay at my job forever because I was working, 8 in the morning until 10 at night. And it just wasn't like a good lifestyle. But you see, if we can save money and live like this for a year or two, then we'll have a lot more freedom, going into the future. So that really got her on board, seeing the overall big picture.
What's her take on the home repairs? Something that she enjoys doing as well, or would she just as soon you take care of that and she not get involved?
She's doing like painting and working on our unit, but most everything else I'm working on, or my brother's been helping me. He's he was able to leave his job through house hacking as well a couple of years ago. And then I have some other people that I've hired, some contractors and whatever.
That's cool. And I only ask that question because I think it's important in relationships that we respect where each other falls, that they may be things that we want to accomplish financially that our spouse isn't going to be on board completely with, or may not be as interested in. It doesn't mean we have to stop doing it. We just need to be respectful of each person's position and where they want to be, and then work around that to allow us to reach the goals that we're going after.
Absolutely. And I think just talking about a lot of people don't talk about their finances. And I think being very open and honest with where are we at? Everything is, like joint together, and where are we at? Why are we doing this? And being very open and honest and talking about finances a lot is actually a really good thing. And I think that causes a lot of strife with people who don't talk about it. They're spending money behind each other's backs. And I think it's really good to hold each other accountable and just talk about stuff. It's really important stuff. Like, people spend the better part of every day of their lives at a job working for money, and then they never talk about it, and they pretend it don't exist, and they just waste it. And it's like, they say they don't care about money, and they don't want to budget, and they don't care about this stuff, but you do if you're spending, the better part of your life working for it.
As a CPA, it's very interesting for me because obviously I meet thousands of people. I go through their finances. I see the situations that they're in. And it always surprises me how many spouses have no clue what their spouse even does for work. It's like, yeah, they go earn money and they come home and there's money in the bank account. And I'm like, what do you guys talk about all the time? This is a primary conversation for me and my family. And maybe it's because I'm a CPA. Maybe it's because finances are so important to us. But it's served us very well to have those open conversations. And it served us very well to pick what we're going to do. In fact, my wife, I got very lucky. My wife's father is actually a carpenter. So she was raised working, dealing with cabinets, sanding, painting, doing all these things. Well, she spent the last 2 weeks sanding and painting doors in our home because we're getting ready to sell our house. And there were things that need to be done. She's like, I'm not going to pay somebody to come in here, pay thousands of dollars when I can go upstairs, do it myself. I can listen to my books, do whatever I want to do, and just get it done. And it's worked very well for us.
Yeah, that's great. And it's like you said, like those life skills that you'll get to have for the rest of your life once you just learn how to do these things once and you get to do them. And a lot of times it's a lot of fun. Any of those painting and small repairs is, kind of like therapeutic to do.
Yeah, I just had to redo our roof. I had to go up and pressure wash it, get it all done. And it was good for me. I loved it. Now, as I get older, you had the ladder and stuff of that nature. I'm trying to not get on too much, but hey, it's a good opportunity to get up and just get my mind away from business and the other things that I do. And it's very therapeutic for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Gabe, what's next for you? I know you're doing a bunch of videoing. You're doing a bunch of getting your message out. What do you see for the next 3 to 5 years for yourself?
I really don't know, because as of 6 months ago, I was planning on working till I was 27 at this other job, and I was aiming for like hitting FI at 30, and now I left that job, and and things kind of change. So I really don't know. I'm just kind of focused a little bit more on YouTube and my podcast, and like house hacking and stuff like that, and just trying to help people and figure out a way to work with family. So I'm not sure how that's going to happen yet. I am, working on real estate a little bit, but I'm not really quite sure. I'm just kind of taking it 1 month at a time and then like leaving myself open for opportunities as they come up. Cause, like kind of like a lot of, I think younger people, it's hard to pick what you want to do for the next 5 years or 10 years when you're a little bit younger. And I didn't know 5 years ago and I still don't know. So I'm just kind of just trying to optimize every day.
Well, I'm glad to see it's not just my kids that are going through that. That's one of the big discussions we've had. I've got 3 kids that are in college right now, and we had our, regular meeting that we have over the phone where we're talking to them, FaceTiming them, and they all just keep changing their careers. It's like the third time they've all gone on to something else. Like, what's going on, guys? I wanted to be an accountant from the time I was like 10 years old, and that's just what I did. And they're like, no, this is the world we live in. It's not as cut and dry as it used to be. And we have all these desires that we want to accomplish with our lives. And really, I guess it was my generation that caused a lot of that we gave our kids a lot of opportunity that we never had when we were younger. And it's been able to expose them to a lot of the world that we never got exposed to.
Yeah. And until even recently, I never thought of like YouTube as like a possible career. And now I'm like, well, is it, should I take a year and really focus on that? And could that turn into, a career for the next, 5 years or whatever? So I'm still trying to decide like, are those things like, it's not a real job. It wasn't a couple of years ago. And now I'm like, oh, this is actually like something that might, help a lot of people. And I enjoy doing, and I just, really enjoy talking about this stuff. So I'm trying to figure out what is the best path to help a lot of people and really enjoy what I do every day.
But the cool thing about it is you have the freedom to do that. You put yourself in a position to where you can do that. And that's one of the biggest things, I guess, that we need to really look at in our own lives in Prosperity Nation. If you're in a point that you're feeling completely locked down, and especially right now, you should look to the future and find ways that you can get yourself in a position that you have the freedom to do the things that you want.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's why I'm also very big on like side hustles. Like I was doing like 4 jobs at once, up until recently, because if you are willing to, put that time in and start those things, like I couldn't just like stop and go into something. You have to have another boat to jump into, kind of before you jump out of your full-time deal. So I think it's very good to like start things and see where they end up. And a lot of them, like I've tried like 20 different things and most of them didn't work out, but a few of them have completely changed my life. So I think trying a bunch of different things and finding out like you don't have to do the conventional path that a lot of people are doing. A lot of these other possibilities that you didn't even know existed could end up working out,
Yeah, you make a very good point, and it's something that I know I've looked back on my own life, that there have been many things that I've done that haven't worked out the way I hoped they would. But as you look back on it, we learned so much from it, and we wouldn't have gotten into things that did work out had we not taken those steps and had we not put ourselves out there. And I think you're exactly right, that people need to understand that it's a trial and error process. That any successful person has gone through some type of failure to get themselves to the success they're at. And that's just part of our learning and part of what we need to get ourselves used to. Now, yeah, you don't want to go into a situation where you're going to bankrupt yourself and you're going to put everything at risk, but you don't have to do that in this world. Right now, you talk about, there's so many opportunities to make money without putting a lot of money at risk to really get yourself where you need to be.
Absolutely. And not being afraid of failure is a big thing. Like a lot of people will never take that first step to buy that first house hack, or never take that step to, start a side hustle or start a whatever, because they're scared of being embarrassed, of losing money, of, just failing. And it's, kind of trying to change the way you look at failure as this, no matter what happens. Like when I started YouTube, I was like, no matter what happens, my kids are going to have a good laugh one day. Like watching me when I was younger. And I think it would be really cool to see if my dad had a YouTube channel, of 30 years ago. I think I would love to watch that. So I was like, if worst comes to worst, nobody ever watches, which nobody watched for the first 6 months. I think it'll be a good experience. And now I've been able to turn that into, do it like a photography. I can do that on the side if I want to. And like all these other things, all these possibilities that started because I was like, hey, what's the worst that can happen? I'm going to try it. I'm going to commit to it for X amount of time. And it just continues to open up, possibilities. So I think not being afraid of failure is a big thing, and just take that first step.
Great advice. So do you do all of your own video editing for your YouTube? Or?
Yep. It's, I think that's the most fun part. Like just editing video. It's like it's very good creative outlet. I think it's a blast.
Interesting, because I've done some of my own. I'm not as good as CR, who edits all these shows, who does the awesome job in our office. But you're right, it's just fun to learn these things. I mean, that's one of the things I love most about reaching out in my own career, is I've been able to learn so many skills that some I want to use forever. Some it's like, you know what, don't care if I ever use that again, but it was a great experience.
Yeah. And I think I'm also I am an extremely competitive person. So I think it's fun to find these challenging things and really challenge yourself and learn a new skill, no matter what that is. And it's really hard, but you feel like a sense of accomplishment afterwards. So I think that's also a good thing, because you need to feel that. Like for certain people, I really need that creative outlet. And I also need that challenge and just try new things. And I don't think I could do one thing for too long here,
Yeah, that was my life. That was a place that I was in. People always ask me if I'll ever retire, and I won't, because I just love doing business. Now, it doesn't mean that I'm not in a financial position that I could retire, that I get away, but it's just I love doing what I do, and I love being able to work with people, talk to people, help people, go through various financial situations with people. And as a result, I doubt I'll ever retire. I think I'll probably die in my chair just saying, hey, I'm loving my life. I'm enjoying now. Yeah. Will I travel a lot? Will I do other things during that time? Absolutely. But I really look forward to just continuing to help and work with people.
Yeah. And that's the goal. Like, even if I was, I'm getting close to the place where I could technically retire and not do anything. Like I'm not there yet. But like, like after a month, what are you going to do? You got to have something that you love to do and you feel like it has a purpose and you're helping people. So like if you have a job that you absolutely love, that's great. Like still work on your finances, but you got to find that thing that you're going to like to do once you hit, FI, that you still want to do every day. Cause otherwise you're just going to like lose it,
Yeah. I was talking to one of my friends the other day, and it's funny because he's a self-made millionaire. He's could be completely retired. And he's saying his wife's complained that he's working all the time. He's like, she has no idea. I'm really not. I'm just doing various things in the office or making stuff happen, but she respects my time. And so she doesn't come in and interrupt me. But her perception of what's going on in my life right now is not the reality, that I really have a ton of free time. I can pretty much do whatever I want, whenever I want to. And it's great that he's gotten himself to that point. But as a result, he continues to invest in other businesses and help other business owners grow and develop and progress. So for our listeners, Gabe, how can they get a hold of you? How can they watch your YouTube videos, listen to your podcast?
Well, my YouTube channel is just my name, Gabe Bult, B-U-L-T. Podcast is coming back for season 2. It's Finances Unfiltered. That's just me and my brother just talking, normal everyday people. Like, I'm just trying to show that like normal people can do this type of stuff. And then Gabe.Bult on Instagram. Yeah, that's about it.
Cool. Well, Gabe, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I had a blast.
No, it's been wonderful. Prosperity Nation, thank you for listening in today. Again, if you've not had a chance to subscribe to our show, please make sure you do so. Want to make sure you're getting information on each of our shows each week. We release every Friday. If you've not got your tax return done yet, please go to eTrendsGroup.com. They help support the show, allow us to bring this information to you so that you can better your financial life. My name's Dave Hall. I'm the Prosperity Guy. You have been listening to the Prosperity Gap, the show where we help you bridge that gap between the life you're currently living and the one you should be.